In this video, we're going to tell you about the Fort Necessity National Battlefield in Farmington, Pennsylvania.
Well, hello there, Parapeeps, and welcome to another episode of Our Haunted Travels. I'm your host, Sean Donnelly.
I'm your co-host, Marianne Donnelly.
That's right. Today we are here at
Fort Necessity.
Well, playground.
Well, the playground of Fort Necessity.
We're at a visitor center for Fort Necessity. We're going to go inside, take you guys with us, show you a little bit about inside of the visitor center, and then we'll be back here in a second.
Can't ask for better service. Straight from the owner's hands.
You know the saying, water the horses and brandy the gentleman.
A gentleman? Next thing you'll be getting his own bed for the night.
You can each have your own bed, you just have to share it with 2 or 3 others.
End of the day, she's still sleeping. All I care is that you don't want to be a solid case. Last night at the Fairview, I thought I was sleeping next to a mule. One fella packed such a wallop.
That cook in the bed, tenderizing the flesh before they ate you.
Any bed bugs you bring in the night out, you better take with you when you leave.
I thought about sleeping on the floor. No harder than the bed anyway, and about as soft as their biscuits.
Alright, next thing that we're going to do is we're going to tell you the history of the fort, and while we're doing that, we're going to show you the fort.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Alright?
You know I love the history stuff.
Alright, well follow along with us so we won't make the history so boring. Alright, we'll be back out there.
Fort Necessity, named by George Washington himself as Fort of Necessity, is located along US 40, the first national road, in Fayette County, Pennsylvania. The fort today is a replica, as the original was burned down by the French in 1754, within 2 months of its being built, after the only surrender ever of Colonel George Washington. But I'll get to that in just a bit. The replica of the fort, which was built in the 1970s, is the same size and shape as the original fort and sits directly on its original footprint, as determined via archaeological excavations of the site. The fort was a circular structure that was a mere 53-foot diameter palisade or stake wall built in just 5 days, from May 30th to June 3rd of 1754, from surrounding trees. The structure had a 168-foot perimeter and had a 3.5-foot entrance gate on the southwest section. The structure encircles a 14-foot storehouse, which was used for storing gunpowder, food, particularly flour and rum, etc. A few small pieces of the original palisades are preserved in the visitor center just down the trail from the replicated fort. Okay, so in 1753, the French had descended down into the Ohio River Valley, claiming it for France. The British claimed that the area belonged to Virginia and sent Washington, along with a few others, to inform the French that they were to leave as the land had already been claimed. When Washington did this, they essentially said, no, this is our land, and refused to leave. Washington returned to Virginia and gave the leaders there the news. In April of 1754, George Washington, a newly commissioned lieutenant colonel, and 160 men were sent to build a road to Redstone Creek on the Monongahela, and to help defend the English fort on the Ohio, which had already, unbeknownst to the British, been taken over by the French and renamed Fort Duquesne.
So this is awful pretty out here.
Yeah,
Quiet too. Wonder where everyone's at.
they're all
Probably
searching for Bigfoot.
Yeah, here they said, hey, the creepy ghost people are coming.
That could be too. But this is a nature walk. They had trails.
Yeah.
They're very paved though.
Yeah, paved nature walk.
Paved nature walk.
So this is a reconstructed fort.
Right. Not the original.
I don't know how much else audio we're going to use because we got wind coming through now. There the wind stopped. It's awful wet out here though.
Yeah. It's nice that they have it paved so that we don't have to worry about all the icky, squishy, muddy stuff that we just love.
Come around and see where we came from.
By late May of 1754, Washington had reached a large natural clearing to be known as the Great Meadows. He made this his base camp. Grass there could provide food for his animals, and there was water that was readily available as well. Word came that a party of French soldiers was camped in a ravine not far from them. So on the night of May 27th of 1754, Washington and about 40 men set out to confront the French and learn of their intentions. Washington met with a Seneca Indian chief named Half King and made plans to contact the French camp. Washington and his men easily surrounded the unsuspecting French, and somehow a shot was fired. No one's really sure by whom, however, a skirmish which lasted about 15 minutes then ensued. When it was over, 13 Frenchmen were dead and 21 were captured. Washington's casualties were simply 1 man killed and 2 or 3 wounded. Washington sent his prisoners on to Williamsburg, while he returned to the Great Meadows, and the fort was built. Colonel Fry was on his way with reinforcements, but died on May 31st, so when Washington finds this out, he becomes colonel and assumes command of the forces that were to arrive with the reinforcements on June 9th. Washington continued to have his men work on building the road throughout June until he hears that the French are advancing. He returns to Fort Necessity on July 1st and directs fortification of the fort and surrounding trenches. On July 3rd, the French arrive with additional Indian forces. A battle ensues where Washington's losses are great. He agrees to surrender, the only time that this will ever happen under his command. Terms of the surrender include peaceful withdrawal, even allowing them to keep their weapons, except for their swivel cannon guns. A statement that Washington was guilty of the assassination of a French officer named Jumonville. He said the translation that he was given was not assassination, but simply death of or killing of. And an agreement that they would not build another fort west of the Appalachian Mountains for at least 1 year. After this, the French burned down the fort. Washington would return the following year with Major General Braddock, and approximately 15 years later, he would purchase the land where his first battles took place and would call it Mount Washington. In 1854, locals attempted to memorialize the site and Colonel Washington. They were going to build an obelisk, but funding was an issue and it never came to be. Now, since the fort had been burned down, only ridges and depressions on the land marked the site of the fort, and the depressions were thought to mark the perimeter of the palisade wall. In 1901, a study of the site revealed that the ridges formed a diamond shape. On March 4th of 1931, Congress declared Fort Necessity as a National Battlefield Site under the management of the War Department, and archaeology was conducted to determine the original location of the stockade and provide information for reconstructing the fort in 1932. Since several fragments of the stockade posts were unearthed near depressions, people believed that the ridges and depressions were actually the remnants of the fort stockade, and the original reconstruction was a large diamond-shaped stockade. The battlefield was transferred to the National Park Service in 1933. In 1952 and 1953, in preparations for the bicentennial, archaeologists looked for evidence of the fort and entrenchments. The fort turned out not to be the shape it was thought to be after all. It was a circle. The true size and shape of the location of Fort Necessity was then discovered and provided data for the reconstruction that we see today. On August 10th of 1961, the park was redesignated a national battlefield, and it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places on October 15th of 1966. The round replica of the fort was constructed on the site in 1970s. A new visitor center would be opened on October 8th of 2005. And in 2016, an additional archaeology event identified one of the French positions during the attack on the fort. Dropped French and fired British musket balls were found, along with a sword guard, buttons, and a French spontoon, which was also known as a signaling weapon. In the spring and summer of 2019, the National Park Service works on renovations for the fort, replacing a small bridge over Indian Run Creek that leads to the fort, and the palisades of the fort. It was expected that the renovations would take from April through September, unlike the original 5 days it took Washington's men to complete the task. But they are trying to minimize disruptions to the visitors. Well, I hope this is an outpost, because if not, that is the smallest fort I've ever seen. Let's find out. According to this sign here, that is as big as it was. It says that Washington selected the fort site in the field. His soldiers split oak logs in half, set them upright in a large circle about 53 feet across, and then inside the stockade they built a 14-foot square log storehouse. Outside they began digging trenches, and in the boggy ground finished building the fort in 5 days. Alright, if I can get this time, it'll be a nice job.
If you don't break your ankle. Okay, so we made it out here to the fort. Hopefully we had enough footage there for the history. If not, splice pictures in there. But I think we need to turn it over to Boris and let him talk about some of the paranormal claims. What do you think? All right, Boris, take it away.
Reports continue to come in of paranormal occurrences, including the sound of ghostly musket shots and voices giving commands to unseen ghostly troops. Many have heard and recorded whispers in Native American, British, and French tongue. Legend has it that Fort Necessity is haunted. Even park rangers and visitors have heard this musket fire. There's also some unexplained footsteps that have been heard within the visitor center.
All right, here's what we're going to try to do. There's nobody else here but us.
Yeah, we're the only ones.
So we're going to try to walk back through the fort with the obelisk on and see if we pick up anything. If we don't, then we probably won't use this video. All right, let's see if we catch anything. We're going to be walking back through the fort and back, so let's see what happens.
All right.
All right, so Mary Ann's got the obelisk on, so it's already calibrated. So I bet that this path here is part of Braddock's Road too. Don't you think?
Maybe.
Because it led from Fort Necessity down to his grave site.
His grave says that way though.
Yeah, true. You're right. If there's any spirits here, you're not allowed to use our energy whatsoever, but you can come and use this device and communicate with us. We invite you to come on over and let us know that you're here. Are there any soldiers still roaming this battlefield? Come let us know if you're still here. Anybody home? How long were you here? You can also speak into this device I'm holding in my hand too if you want to leave us a message. Can you tell us what year it is? I heard General Washington's coming by. We got to get things ship shape before he gets here. What do you think?
Did it really take you guys 5 days to build this? Did they reconstruct it right? It's very peaceful back here now. Bet you it wasn't when you were here, huh?
Providence.
Providence.
Providence. Is
Were
that
you
where you're
from
from?
Providence?
Oh, jeez. Were you from Providence? We've been there.
Mm-hmm.
You miss your family? Or do you get to see them now? That's pretty interesting, just out of the blue.
I think it's also interesting that both of us thought that.
Yeah, we
same
thought of it at
thing
the same time.
too. That's interesting. I like how half of these are original, like not original, but wood peg.
Yeah.
And some of them are metal rivet. I like that they put some of those in there. That's cool.
How long were you staying here? You got anything else you'd like to share with us? Well, if that's where you're from, Providence is a beautiful town, city. Can you tell us what your name is? Spiderweb, spiderweb, spiderweb. Marianne's taking pictures inside that you can't get in because it's locked, but she's sticking a camera in there.
Let's see what I can get. I'm gonna go and get some from the other side too.
There's a big hole up there.
Oh yeah. I'm too short to see in there, but the camera's not.
I wonder how they get those down. They had to pound them down into the ground. Each one of those.
Probably the thing that took them the most time out of the whole 5 days.
You think? Hello. Okay, guys. The last clip when I cut it off there, we were down there doing like a little session down there by the fort.
You know how much the Park Service loves that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and up come a ranger. So we kind of stopped. But
I left the ovilus running.
Yeah, and as he was telling us the story of the fort, this
started
ovilus went nuts. And I was like looking at Marianne like, are you going to shut that thing off? It just kept going and going and going and going. So as he's telling the story, man, it just like...
Did you record any of that?
No, I didn't. I didn't have it. Yes.
I thought you had that on.
No, I didn't. But just now, just walking over here, so he's told us the story about a soldier whose last name was...
Well, his name was Rocket.
Rocket.
And he had his arm amputated. He was the only one who had like a major surgery here at the fort. And coming back up from the thing, I got Rocket Tool Poem. Just the fact that the guy's name was Rocket is like crazy. Crazy cool. Like,
yeah, I thought we were going to get kicked off the property. We didn't ask permission or anything, but yeah. The National Park Service doesn't kind of like us ghost people, and of course we're wearing our shirts.
Of course we are, because we had it for the...
I don't know where he came from. There's nobody out here. Like, he just came out. There has to be cameras here somewhere. I don't know. All right, well, anyways, we had to share that. We started getting some stuff, and then when he came in and started telling the story, it just went digga.
Should I go to that main page and get all the
well,
words?
when we go back to the thing, we'll record a little thing and tell you all the words that went off.
Okay.
All right? So when we go to the hotel later.
Okay.
So, the ovilus recordings were Providence, ran during, Grace, faster, idle, truck, west, island, bank, witch, remove, poem, rocket, tool, coat.
Very cool though.
Very cool.
Especially the rocket thing is like really cool. Another one of the words was something about run and stuff like that, and the name of the creek is something run. He was telling us. We'll have to look up the name of it, but that's cool too.
It
but
just
rocket. How like that.
So while we was talking, this thing's going digga, and then it would stop, and I'm like, did he say some more? It would go digga, you know, all these words.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Let us know if you like this video by hitting that thumbs up. Also, if you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, support our channel by hitting that subscribe button and dinging that bell so you get notified the next time there's a video from Panic D Videos.
Thanks for watching.
Happy hunting!